Today I'm going to tell you the top 10 albums of 2023. A lot of good music came out this year, but I'm about to give you the definitive top 10, okay? Move over, Fantano, Brad Taste in Music, Joe Denton, NFR Podcast. What you guys doing? This is the real list right here. I'm only joking. I'm not approaching this list as like a definitive best of. A lot of personal taste is going into this. There were a lot of just absolutely amazing albums that came out this year that you should listen to that didn't make this list, but I'm about to give you my personal top 10, and I know a lot of y'all are new to the channel, so if you guys are new here, this is a great way to see what kind of stuff I'm actually listening to, if you're curious. At number 10, I have Teezo Touchdown with How Do You Sleep at Night? And the main thing I admire about this album is just how eccentric it is. Like, you got a really eccentric looking guy, so I think people are expecting a lot, and this album delivered. He really is just one of the most creative guys out there right now. Just looking through all of the songs and all the different genres he's pulling from, he's created a new genre, according to him. He calls this rock and boom music. But to me, this album sounds like if Prince was Gen Z. Like if Prince grew up on hip hop and had the internet. He's just doing so much on this album. He has great storytelling tracks like Neighborhood, Impossible is inspiring, is sexy, Mood Swings is just a bop, and I think my favorite song is Familiarity. Familiarity. I know for a lot of people this guy just looks like he came out of nowhere, and I've heard industry plant accusations thrown at him, but what I think people don't realize is his debut album came out right before he turned 31, which is older than a lot of artists in his realm, and you could tell on a song like Familiarity that he's been through the struggle. Like he could put something out there that people like me could relate to, that artists that blow up when they're like 19, they just don't have that life experience. And Teezo Touchdown 100% just did not come out of nowhere. This has been years in the making. I remember during the pandemic, his social videos were blowing up on Twitter. And if you haven't seen his episode of The Cave with Kenny Beats, it's one of my favorite Cave episodes, and it really shows just what a creative force this guy is. I think the only critique of this album I have is I watched Joe Denton's live reaction of it, and I think he comes from more of a rock or metal background, but he said something about how for this type of music, he thinks there should be more live drums. After he said that, I listened to the songs. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, a live performer putting a lot more energy behind the drums, I think would add more. At number 9, I have Pink Tape by Lil Uzi Vert. And I know this one is probably a strange inclusion. I don't think this is on any other year-end list, but I love this album so much. And I'll be the first to admit that it's not a perfect album by any stretch of the imagination, but there are just so many strong moments. Lil Uzi Vert has always been a guy that has been very inspired by rock and mixes that in his hip hop, and I think some of the best moments of him doing that show up on this album. He just has such a raw energy that he channels so great on some of these songs. I listen to some of these songs and I can't help but picture just a giant festival crowd all moshing, giant waves of people jumping up and down. Like this sounds like music made for a stadium, for a festival experience, and I hope one day to experience that. But there are songs that aren't quite as good as some of the highlights, but the reason this is a top album for me is it is just such a chaotic album. Your first time listening to this album, you really don't know what to expect from the next track. It honestly, it made for such a fun listening experience. Like the way I explain it is every single flaw on Pink Tape just contributes to the chaotic nature of the album. And because of that, those flaws almost circle back around into becoming positives. Because it starts off, he's doing these rock rap hybrids, then he's doing more traditional Uzi, then he's sampling Blue Bada Bee. Then there's a 5-song stretch where he samples a wrestler intro, does a Jersey Club song, does whatever Fire Alarms is, does a Chop Suey cover that is on a Bring Me the Horizon song. And him having a baby metal feature just feels so funny, yet so right. And him ending in almost like an anime style credit song, just a perfect closer. I also really like the bonus tracks. Like for some reason, Zoom just hit something in me. It's stuck in my head all the time. So yeah, just in terms of an album that has a lot of energy, a lot of creative energy, and will keep you on your toes, I love Pink Tape. At number 8, we got Scarin' the Hoes by JPEGMAFIA and Danny Brown. And of course, this album is on a lot of other year-end lists, and I just want to say, if there was a Grammy for best track list, like these people would win for sure. But aside from it being super energetic and having some of the most forward-thinking production of anything this year, I think really what this album represents and why it hit a chord with so many people is it's kind of just a celebration of strange music in and of itself. Because the phrase "scaring the hoes" before this year, it was a way of putting down different sounding music. Like your friend will play some experimental stuff in the aux and everyone's like, hey, you can't play that, you're gonna scare the hoes. And then these two people came on the scene and they're like, you know what, we don't care. We will proudly scare the hoes because we believe that this music has a place. It just has some of the most interesting production, some of the wildest performances, and I lean beef patty. The way I live for that super fast, sped up, chipmunked vocal sample that just is throughout the thing. At number 7, I have The Land is Inhospitable and So Are We by Mitski. And this album I actually listened to for the first time, like just a week ago. I'm actually kind of new to Mitski as a whole. Like I haven't dove into her back catalog fully. It's strange because I like so many artists in that realm. But yeah, just the moment I heard this album, it was one of those albums that I immediately put on repeat. I dropped everything I was doing and just looked at the genius lyrics while I listened because, oh my God, I think this is some of the best songwriting I've heard this year. And again, I'm in a place where I'm still digesting the album and figuring it out, what it means to me, but there's definitely a lot of themes of like loss, and it sounds like maybe there's like some relationship that failed. Already there are just lyrics that are living in my head. When Memories Snow is just such a poetic way of giving an image to what memories are and how sometimes like memories from the past just come out of nowhere and you have to, it's like shoveling snow. It's just you weren't expecting it and now you have to do the work to deal with these memories you didn't see coming. Heaven is one of my favorites. I'm Your Man has lyrics I'm still digesting, but I love so much. And of course, My Love, Mine, All Mine was big on TikTok, but don't let that dissuade you. Just because something gets popular on TikTok does not mean it's bad. I don't get people that think that way. It's a great song. And honestly, I feel so highly about this album already that it maybe even deserves a higher place. I discovered it so recently. I don't feel comfortable like putting it above some of these other albums that I've lived with all year. But yeah, I'm putting Mitski at 7. The last minute inclusion of this album knocked Tyler Childers out of the top 10, which I was sad to see that go. But we still have some country representation on this list because at number 6, I have Zach Bryan's self-titled album. Country music just took 2023 by storm, and I'm probably gonna make a whole separate video about that. This was one of the main albums that popped off, and it's exactly what I like out of country. I live in the South, I've grown up here, so I've always had a soft spot for country music, but I've mainly only gravitated toward older country music, but Zach Bryan can add just such a new edge to it while still staying true to what I think are the roots of some great country. And what are those roots? A great country song just gets you in your feels. And I don't think a single album this year gets me in my feelings quicker than Zach Bryan. It's just well-written song after well-written song. His voice just feels so raw on all these recordings. And there's so much. I have a hard time picking my favorite song. It changes so much. At one point it was Overtime. At one point it was Holy Roller. I think right now it's East Side of Sorrow. At number 5, I have Lana Del Rey with Did You Know There's a Tunnel Under Ocean Boulevard. I've always had a soft spot for Lana Del Rey's music, but I feel like this is by far, by leaps and bounds, the best stuff she's ever done. Everything that's unique to Lana Del Rey is at its peak form on this album, and every new thing she tries also just seems to work flawlessly. It's just really intimate songwriting mixed with beautiful production. This album feels like a rainy day, but like a peaceful rainy day where the rain's pouring outside, but you're inside all warm and you got a cup of coffee and you're just watching the rain fall, letting the sounds just put you in a relaxing trance. That's my experience with this album, but also that with a healthy dose of sobbing, I guess. There's a lot of songs about death and loss on here, but I think they're really beautiful. All of the features on this album are really great, from John Baptiste's piano playing to Father John Misty on Let the Light In. Kintsugi might be my favorite song, if I'm saying that right, because she explains it in the song, but Kintsugi is this Japanese form of art where if a piece of pottery breaks, they mend it back together, but they put silver or gold inside of the adhesive. And so when it comes back together, it really stands out. And the fact that this thing has been broken and mended is part of what stands out to it as an art piece. Like, you're meant to see that it was broken and then fixed. And it's used as a metaphor so beautifully in the song. This album came out earlier in the year, and it was just with me for so much of the year, and I love it so much. One final thing, though, is I was not expecting to see a Judah Smith feature on a major album in 2023. At number 4, we have I Care So Much, I Don't Care At All by Glaive. This is another album I don't see on a lot of year-end lists, and I don't hear that much talk about Glaive at all, really, but one thing y'all gotta figure out about me real quick is Glaive is one of my favorite artists out right now. I don't know what it is about him, but he just kind of has the key to my brain, where every single thing he makes just kind of hits me in a way that I have to listen to it over and over again. And Glaive started out making more like emo trap hyperpop type music, but this album has him doing more guitar forward indie rock pop, that sort of thing. And while that switch might seem huge to a lot of former fans, it feels very natural to me. Like, I always kind of saw this in him, just the way he writes. He feels like he has the soul of a folk artist to me, and you see that more on display in this album, which is probably why I like it so much. The album starts off so boldly. The first track is essentially him writing a suicide note, and throughout the album you kind of get to experience him lift himself out of the funk that he starts the first track with. And Glaive is a very young artist. I think he was 15 when his music first started popping off. He was 18 as of now and when this album came out, and I feel like he could vocalize so much of what the youth is going through right now just so perfectly and so fervently. As If is probably the best example of that. And he could write about such serious topics, but it's not at the expense of the album's energy. He just channels such raw emotion so well, like to the point of being dramatic, but that intensity is the main highlight of this music. And this is the type of like indie rock sound we aren't getting a lot of now, so it's really cool to see this being done for a newer generation. There's so many songs I love so much. As If is probably my favorite. It samples Timothy Chalamet, Prom, the Closer song, 17250, Party Urgent Care, I think might be my most listened to now. Also, that's another fun thing about Glaive. Glaive lives like just about an hour from where I am. I've driven past the Party Urgent Care on many occasions. I haven't tried to utilize this connection yet, but I actually know a guy who knows Glaive's dad. But I just think it's really cool seeing music from this region that speaks to people around here get really big. Seeing some of his earlier music videos that are shot around the area he lives, like the mountains of North Carolina, it honestly helped me gain a new appreciation for some of that scenery, and I've used that as inspiration in some of my music video work. So yeah, huge appreciation to Glaive. This was one of my most listened to albums of the year. And at number 3, I have Boygenius with The Record. And I just have to say that 2023, while it in a lot of ways was a very difficult year, the absolute Boygenius supremacy of 2023 was one of the main things that kept me going. And it really has lasted like the entire year. The first singles came out in January. The record came out in March. It's really just been a steady constant of hype that's never let up. And honestly, all 3 of the members, like these women's music individually has meant so much to me. So the fact that they could just like combine like Voltron into a supergroup is incredible. It's really crazy just how good their voices sound together. Like it feels like they were engineered in a lab, that all 3 of them are at a certain frequency, that when they all sing at once, it combines like a puzzle piece into the perfect sound. I love Julian getting to dip into her rock background with $20 and Satanist. I think Lucy Dacus has some of her best moments ever with True Blue and Leonard Cohen. Emily, I'm Sorry is an instant Phoebe classic. My favorite song is probably tied between Cool About It and Not Strong Enough. The main moment where all 3 of them come together, it just is immaculate. My favorite moment is like right after the bridge when Lucy's vocals just come in and she just glides over the song in this way that is just immaculate to listen to. And then Cool About It just has some of the most somber writing, but it's such a beautiful song at the same time. It just always gets me in my feelings, which is what these 3 are known for. Speaking of feelings, at number 2, we have Javelin by Sufjan Stevens. And this is another album that seems to be on everyone's year-end list, and with good reason. It's easily just one of the most beautiful things you'll hear all year. Sufjan is one of my favorite artists, if not my favorite artist of all time. And a lot of people are labeling this album as a return to form in some ways, but I would contest that a little. I feel like a lot of Sufjan's more recent stuff has been excellent. I think that there are a lot of songs off the Ascension, which I feel like is an underrated album, that have a lot of the same orchestration as what you hear in here, and if you like covertly snuck some of those songs in, I feel like they would still belong. But don't get me wrong, I get where those people are coming from, because this album features the indie sounds that he's known for, the big orchestration that he had in albums like Chicago, and he even manages to pull from a lot of the electronic sounds that he's done on his more electronic albums. So it really just feels like a culmination of everything that makes Sufjan Sufjan, and the main kicker, which just puts it over the edge, is what the album is about. Because this album is dedicated to his partner who passed away just a few months prior. And you could hear just how much he loved him in the lyrics of this song, both in him celebrating his life and analyzing their relationship, and him dealing with the loss, feeling like he might not ever find anyone like that again. And it gets at this thing I think about a lot, where being able to create is such a privilege, because people talk about art being magical, but art for real is a form of alchemy. Like you get to turn dirt into gold. No matter what bad things might happen in your life, as terrible as they could be, you have the ability to transform them into something beautiful. And that could give you power over them, because bad things don't have the ability to stay bad. Like you could have the last laugh. You could turn them into something beautiful and something that helps other people, because so many of the lyrics on this album don't mince any words. Like, they're for real depressing and heartbreaking, but when you listen to Javelin, it doesn't feel like a hopeless album. And that's part of just the beautiful instrumentation and all of the songs that have all these choir-like vocals layered over each other. It at least serves as a statement that if you're going through loss, you aren't alone in it. Like that's what that album feels like to me, when you get all those voices and all the instruments and how beautiful the songs sound, even with how depressing the lyrics can be. Like it comes together in a way where you just feel like you have at least one other person there that's also going through something. And yeah, the whole album is just such a beautiful send-off. Like, considering what is in this album, I could only imagine what a beautiful person the guy that this was written for was. And even though he's gone, Sufjan has given a means for him to live on, and his love has now touched so many more people. And the fact that talking about that album almost made me cry, like, it has me doubting putting it at number 2, but I'm gonna stick with it, and that's just gonna make my number 1 pick feel all the more chaotic. But my top album of 2023 is 100 Gecs with 10,000 Gecs. And I really have no other explanation other than the fact that this album is fun. Like, this album is a whole lot of fun. And I think it's something I needed this year. Like, there is so much going on, and sad music helps me out a whole lot, but I don't have a lot of truly fun albums that I could gravitate toward, and they just always give me a good time, and this was the main album for that. 100 Gecs is just so off the wall, goofy, zany. You never know what to expect with their music. Just their chipmunked vocals, the fact that they pull from just about any genre under the sun, the topics that they write about. Like, where else are you gonna get a ska song about getting your tooth removed? There's an entire song dedicated to a frog sitting on the floor, and that's the type of music that we need more of. We have a ton of songs about love and heartbreak, but we don't have enough songs about frogs. And while 100 Gecs is known for being very experimental and genre pushing, they somehow managed to still do that, but also create a more accessible album than what they've done in the past. I know they have a lot of fans in the rock community as well as hip hop and hyperpop, and they lean a little more into rock and create some legitimately good rock songs that, if they didn't have the chipmunk vocals, like Hollywood Baby, I could picture playing on a local rock station. Dumbest Girl Alive is just such a hard-hitting album intro, and the lyric about put emojis on my grave, just 757, I love the energy coming in, and then when the beat switches and you get the vocals just sample going, Billy Knows Jamie is such a rush of aggression and adrenaline, and even what was my least favorite song, $1 Million, I saw them do this song live, and I've gained a new appreciation for it. I got my tooth removed. Is it a metaphor for taking toxic people out of your life, but a little too late to the fact that there's still residual damage? Or is it just a song about not going to the dentist? It could be either one. They are just the embodiment, the definition of originality. There is no one else under the sun that is gonna ever make music exactly like them. Their haters will say that's for good reason, but but the fans know that's because no one else has the shred of talent it takes to do this. They make such intricately produced and creatively boundary pushing music, but they make it sound effortless. 10,000 Gecs is just the most fun you're ever gonna have with an album that came out in 2023, and considering how much I gravitate towards sad music, it feels fitting that at least once a fun album gets Album of the Year. You should 100% give 10,000 Gecs a try, even if you're not a fan of this type of music or you've heard other Gecs stuff and hated it. This really is their most accessible album without sacrificing anything that makes them interesting, which I think is just such a feat in and of itself. So yeah, those are my best albums of 2023. The definitive list. No one else has the best albums of the year. I got them right here, but I'm not gatekeeping them. I'm here to spread the love. Listen to all these albums. That's me throwing albums at you like they're missed, I guess. Thank you so much for watching. I put a Spotify playlist in the description with my favorite song from each album, so if you want to give some of this stuff a try, this is a great sampler playlist if you're interested. My name's Robert. You can follow me at Robert2_Isaac on all social media, including here on YouTube. You can subscribe if you're new to the channel. I appreciate y'all so much for watching. Again, this is a new channel. I haven't even had that much time to promote it, but the videos have been getting views and new subscribers, and I love having you all here. One final thing, I am also a filmmaker, and I have a screenwriting podcast with my writing partner. It is called Written by Podcast. You can follow it at Written by Pod. There's a link in the description if you want to check that out. If you want to hear more of my voice, but talking about movies instead of music. So thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments what your favorite albums of the year now. I'm genuinely curious. I love seeing what other people are listening to. I like looking at other people's Spotify Wraps. People act like it's a nuisance. I eat Spotify Wrap Day up. I eat that up for breakfast, lunch, dinner, all the meals. I don't know where I was going with that. I'm gonna close this video. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next year. That's a dad joke. I'll be posting in like a week.